meet every fortnight on a Friday. We aim to have 3 breakout sessions as well. This is the first 10 minutes of the event. We open the doors at 12:25 so that you can get chatting with people whilst we welcome everybody in, and then we can have a proper good start at 12:35. And that's not an excuse to be late, by the way. 12:30 or 12:25 is great. So we aim to have 3 breakout sessions so you can get to know each other and talk to everybody in small groups. Everybody gets a chance to, at some point, pitch to the entire group. We don't do a 60 seconds round robin because it takes too long, but I do pick on 2 people semi-randomly, or I just choose 2 people that are interesting, or have got something coming up like an event or something they want to draw attention to. If that's you, let me know. And I'd love to get 2 of you to pitch to the group for 2 minutes at the end. We always aim to have a guest speaker. And that guest speaker always comes with something thought-provoking content for us as a business leader community. We are expert entrepreneurs. We have a very different set of needs, marketing needs, self-development needs than anybody else. So I always aim to try and get a speaker that's going to help us and aid us in our business and what we do. And we're also now launching our online community hub as well, which is accessible on the iPad, the phone, and the computer. At the moment, membership to that is free. So if you want more information about that, just ping me a message and I'll get you in that. We will be moving to this platform very, very soon. I'm just trying to work out the timing for it. But they have now got a go live function in here. So we can actually log in and run the event inside the platform rather than having to worry about Zoom links, which is going to be fantastic considering there's always a problem with somebody not having a Zoom link that works somewhere. It's going to bring it all together, but it is going to create another headache that everyone's got to have a login, and you might lose your login password, or it just might not work. So I've got to figure all this out before moving forward, which is all part of my MBA project. How wonderful. This makes life easier when you can do 2 things at once. So do try and make sure you come into the community, because that will help when we move over to that later on. For those of you who don't know, I am Naomi, and I am the founder of the Profile Company and the Expert Economy. The Profile Company specializes in writing LinkedIn profiles to position people as the go-to expert in their industry, so prospects come to them pre-sold and ready to buy. And also the Expert Economy, which evolved from the Profile Company, which is literally helping people build the foundations of their business so that prospects do come pre-sold and ready to buy, making sure all the right things are in place that they need. And that's obviously part of what we're doing today, is the community and being together. I'm the author of Grassroots to Green Shoots, What to Put on Your LinkedIn Profile, and the Expert Economy. And I also was part of the Rock Your Profile stand at LinkedIn's global conference twice back in the day. So I just had that on the slide. I don't know why I need to say that today, but I'm reading the slides. So there you go, piece of information about me. So the Expert Economy, what we are here for is really, like I said, having prospects come to us pre-sold and ready to buy, trusting us as their expert. Our goal is to have you billing 70% of your time, studying for 20% of your time, and 10% of your time managing all the pieces. Within that, you might ask, where is the sales and marketing? It's actually inside of the study time. We are experts at what we do. We are not influencers. We do not want to be Gary Vaynerchuk making lots and lots of content and putting ourselves out there massively, or using the F word a lot. We don't want to be doing that. We actually want to be working with clients, doing the work, the transformational work. We want to be bringing our expertise in, learning more, using it, seeing how it's evolving. And that's why I say 70% of the time billing. That's us working with the clients, doing the thing that we set out to do. Within that, obviously, we do need to do sales and marketing. But if I said to you, hey, here's 10 people, please go and speak to them about what you do and see if they can help, you can help them. You not only would love speaking to them and finding out what's going on in their world, but you'd also be learning more about your subject and how your topic is evolving in the marketplace today, and how those problems are actually showing up for people and what's going on for them. So that is you studying, that is you becoming an expert in your clients' problems and learning more. And then obviously you naturally are pulled towards blog posts, books, articles, all sorts of different things that you read. That again creates that inspiration that helps you to do better at your job. But both of these things are things that can easily boil over to you writing your own blog posts and writing your own content, which makes it feel like a really natural overflow of everything you're doing. And when we do that right, in the right way, that will lead us to having clients coming to us, seeing us as an expert, already sold on us being the person they want to work with, and establishing trust. So that's our goal, and our vision is to have experts contributing meaningfully in the world and getting paid for the value they create. And our mission is to develop experts into highly skilled entrepreneurs capable of transforming vision into action and making an impact in the world. Our values are be real, create space, and come in service. For you, what that means is, I get it, this is a really hard journey and it's going to bring you to the very, very edge of yourself. If anybody wants to go through a personal development journey and really grow themselves quickly, they should really start a business as an expert. It's really hard when you go to a regular networking to say, hey, this is my business, do you want to work with me? Oh, and by the way, I'm really struggling. You just don't, you put a mask on. If you go to your friends and family who are working, their usual response, because it makes them feel better, is to say, oh, I just think you should give it up and go get a job. This is all too difficult. Because that's their sense of security and what they know is safe. So it can be really hard. So here it's all about coming and being real, because I know that you can have a really good cry right now in an hour's time, deliver incredible work to your clients. So we're all in the same boat. We all get it. So we can all just be real about what's actually happening. And then with that, when we show that vulnerability, it's creating space for others to feel how they need to feel in that moment, and also giving ourselves the respect for us to feel how we need to feel. And then signposting. If you see something that you can offer somebody as a way of helping them move forward, we do that. We come in service, we help people out, and we move them forward. So that's who we aim to be. And obviously that's a we, because it's all on us to do that. And if you would like to, you can download a copy of my book, The Expert Entrepreneur, which is at that link on the website. You can also find it from the homepage on the website. So you don't need the last bit, you don't need to. You really need to update that, because it's theexperteconomy.com now. So .com, not .co.uk. And also you can buy the book physically in the shop as well. So we run 7-day challenges. The next one's coming up in May. We do a 9-week boot camp coming up in September, and ongoing all the time is the one-to-one coaching that I offer as well. If you haven't taken our scorecard already to see how much you've got sorted in your business already, then please do. Again, you can find that on the homepage of the website. It's a great little quiz there to show you how well you've got things sorted in your business, and if you're on track to having prospects coming to you pre-sold and ready to buy. Wonderful. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Nikki, if you have slides, you can now share. If not, it doesn't matter. You don't need to have them. And we have about 25 minutes. So over to you.
Wonderful. And I haven't done slides because I'd really like to make this more of a conversation and make sure that I'm meeting people's needs. So I was in the room with Darren and Mary for the breakout room, and Mary was talking about some of the coaching services that she provides for individuals, and was talking about space to think. And how we as coaches, that's very often what we provide, is a space to think. And before I came on to our session today, I was talking to an independent consultant who had left his organization, his corporate job, about 18 months ago, so right in the middle of the pandemic. And he set himself up in business. And he went back to what he wrote originally while we were on the call. And he had a very big vision of what he wanted to achieve. And he had crystal clarity around the sorts of organizations that he wanted to work with. What happened between what he wrote then and 18 months later was a bit of a crisis in terms of confidence. And he ended up turning to very small micro businesses and working with them. When we had a conversation, I was talking to him about working with larger organizations, and he said, you know what, that's where I started, and I parked it because I was too scared to actually reach out to those bigger organizations. And I see that a lot with independent coaches and consultants. They would like to have these bigger clients, but they get stuck with, how on earth do I, if I'm looking at that skyscraper or that office building, how on earth do I get in? and start a conversation with a corporate. And that's really what I'm going to be talking about today, and where the opportunities lie. Is that useful for people? Can you just kind of give me a show of hands if that is going to be useful? Yeah, okay. And I'm going to leave some time for questions at the end as well. So the thing about organizations, bigger organizations, is you know as well as I do what the issues are in those organizations right now. You hear it all the time from friends, family that work within these organizations. So it'll come as no surprise that there are lots and lots of opportunities to work with larger organizations at the moment. Particularly if you work with issues to do with teams, there's a lot of disconnected teams around. There's a lot of managers that are overwhelmed, stressed out, dealing with issues that are going on within their teams. On top of that, there's lots of people that are leaving organizations and setting themselves up in business. And you've probably seen it as much as me. There's been a kind of mushroom of independent coaches and consultants that are suddenly out there. So there's a lot of people that are leaving, and very stressed out managers and very disconnected teams, because a lot of them are working in hybrid ways of working at the moment. You imagine being a new member of staff coming into that situation. It's overwhelming, and onboarding isn't happening in the way that people really hoped. If you take it up a level, you've got leaders that are dealing with all of this right now. And some organizations have had massive growth, particularly if they're in the telecoms, the tech industry. That side of an economy has done, well, it's just exploded, hasn't it, in the last couple of years. And then there are some organizations that are really struggling in terms of revenue, in terms of profitability. So if you are an independent coach or consultant, it doesn't matter whether you work with teams, whether you work with managers, whether you work with leaders, maybe you help sales teams, maybe you're a consultant who goes in and works with systems and processes. There is a ton of opportunity right now. There really is. And John, lovely to see you. There's a ton of opportunity for these larger organizations to really think about social value as well, and how they can support social enterprise and also their local communities. So there's so many opportunities. And in the UK alone, it's a $40 billion market. $40 billion market, okay? So lots of work to go around. So what do you do to get into these organizations? Well, the best thing that I could advise you to do is to look at what are the large organizations that are within a 20-mile radius of where you live and work. And the reason why I say that is we all have gain comfort from something that's local to us, something that's nearby. And so being able to reach out to those organizations with, or a corporate decision maker within that organization by saying, hey, I live just down the road from you, or I pass by your office on the way to dropping the kids off at school every morning. It's that sense of comfort. And you can just say, it would be remiss of me if I didn't let you know that I'm here and how I can help. So I'll just leave you with that thought in mind. And if this is something that you would like help with now, then let's have a conversation. I'm available Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning. So a very light and breezy message, and one that gives them comfort because you're nearby. So that would be my first port of call in thinking about larger organizations. The other way of looking at the feeling of being local is really thinking about what's the experience and expertise that you have? What are the industries that you know really, really well? And think of that as your geography, your locality. Because again, there's comfort there because you've got experience, you know the language, you know the suppliers to that particular industry. So again, you've got something really valuable to offer organizations in that industry. And it doesn't matter how long ago it was. Just to kind of give you a little bit of my background, I actually started out in hospitality, in hotel management, okay? And that was way back, early 90s. But to this day, it stayed with me, you know, and it's quite easy for me to rock up into a hotel and kind of spot where things are working well and where they aren't working so well. All right. So you can go back as far as you like in terms of your experience and make those connections. You still know the language, you still know what's going on in that industry, and that gives great comfort too. So in terms of looking for those organizations, that's really quite simple. There's another avenue that you can go down and leverage, which is centers of influence. And centers of influence are the larger accountancy practices and legal practices. They probably have larger organizations as their clients. And the wonderful thing about talking to an accountancy firm, a larger accountancy firm or legal firm, is they are constantly looking for ways that they can add value for their clients. So you can offer to speak at an event, you could offer to host a roundtable discussion with their clients. And by doing that, you're actually adding value for the accountants and the legal firm, and you're getting in front of corporate decision makers. So that's a nice one to leverage. But there are two particular strategies that are going to work incredibly well for you, and these require a bit more effort. One of them is going to be speaking engagements. And there are two types of speaking engagements. There's the ones where, a little bit like the centers of influence, where you offer to do something for free, or at least give your time without being paid. And in return, you get access to an audience, which of course you want to leverage. And the way to leverage that is to actually provide them with something that has a value in exchange for their email address. So what could that be? Well, a checklist is something really easy, and your audience doesn't have to think about or do anything with. You've actually made it much simpler for them and taken that work off the table for them. So somebody that I was talking to earlier today, who specializes in diversity, equity, and inclusion, is doing a speaking engagement next week. And she was like, Nikki, what can I give them? So I said, well, just turn your talk, what you're talking about, into a checklist for them. These are event planners. So for them, having a checklist for every event that they're doing, which is around diversity, equality, and inclusion, is of value to them. So checklists are really easy things to pull together and have a lot of value. So the other form of speaking engagement is a keynote speech. So when you're going to an industry specific conference and being a keynote speaker there, incredibly valuable. And the reason for that, the reason to choose industry specific conferences rather than professions specific conferences is that you get corporate decision makers at those events. They don't tend to go to profession-specific conferences. So thinking about Louise, you know, there's heating, you know, as an industry, that would be a great place to actually go and be a keynote speaker for. They usually have the same agenda items, same or similar speakers year in, year out. And the agenda items or the speeches usually about revenue growth, reducing costs, what are the emerging trends right now in our industries, things like that. And they're things that if you dig deeper, you can make a link to people, because at the end of the day, organizations are about people. And so everything that a conference organizer is looking for in the way of presentations, you can fulfill. If you are about helping people, you can link what you do to any of those topics that I outlined before. So that's a great environment for you to get speaking engagements and be paid for that as well. So those are keynote speeches. And with a keynote speech, it's different to doing a content speech. So what I'm doing right now, I'm kind of sharing with you lots of things at a high level, and some things that are really kind of easy to implement. They're the how-tos. When you're doing a keynote presentation, you want to keep away from the how-tos. You want to stick with what it means to solve a problem within an organization at a much higher level, not going into the how-tos that an individual can implement, okay? You get paid to be visionary and motivational with a keynote speech, so that's where you want to keep it. And using something like a polling app is really useful, because you can actually ask a question of the audience and you can get an instant feedback, an instant answer to that poll within the room itself. So has anybody used a polling app? Who's used a polling app while they've been speaking? Yeah, Naomi has. Yeah. So there's ones like VoxVote, Poll Everywhere, and they're free up to a certain size of audience. But it's a lovely way to engage your audience and also get some insights, some real-time insights into your keynote speech as well. And then, of course, you're going to do the compelling, you'll put the URL for your compelling checklist or whatever it may be on a slide, and you encourage them to get out their phones and put that URL in and download the checklist there and then. So you're making it really easy for them to access the resource that you're giving them, but also you've got their email address. So that's one way of really getting out there in front of corporate decision makers. And another way is creating small, intimate events or roundtable discussions. And that's really about facilitating a discussion with corporate decision makers about the challenges that they're facing right now, and seeding the conversation with how you work with your clients and how you help solve some of these problems. And then you follow up with a one-to-one conversation, and you're there having a needs discovery conversation. So those are some ideas about how to get in front of larger organizations to get more predictable sales or more predictable leads in your pipeline. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Can I kick it off?
Hi, Henry.
Hi, Nikki. No, thanks for that. And I heard you do the talk back in October. And my field, I'm consultant. I work predominantly with local authorities on large-scale placemaking programs. So the challenge I found is actually trying to get to those individuals. And I think one of the challenges at the moment is because people, quotes, aren't working from the office, you can't do the traditional hard copy letter introduction type stuff. And so, because it's just, you can email them, but you're just one of numerous emails that people receive. So actually, if you send them a tailored letter signed, it adds a bit more something to it. So yeah, I suppose in a way, what I'm trying to get at is, given all the noise that's going around everybody at the moment, what's the quickest or easiest route to actually getting their attention?
Pick up the phone.
If you can get hold of their mobile numbers, that's the other challenge. I've just been working with an organisation trying to pull together an event, one of your small intimate events. We've been trying it, and really struggled. Email after email after email, and again, historically, when they were in the office, you'd go through the civic centre, switchboard and say, "Could I speak to such and such?" And eventually you get through. Because everyone's working from home and their mobile number, it's an excuse, I know, but it's just a challenge to get around.
Yeah, and what usually happens with the tables, if you haven't quite got the topic right, if it isn't something that they need to solve in the next 90 days, it's not compelling enough.
Yeah.
So there's something about getting the topic right. And if they see it's got value, they'll attend. That's the thing. It's got to be compelling. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And happy, Henry, happy to have a conversation,
Thanks.
you know, and help around that. Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Great question. Yeah. Hi, Gail. Gail, you're on mute.
Hi, sorry about that. For those who don't know, I'm in Cape Town, South Africa. So hi from there. What I'm doing next week. So I've got a mailing list and I mail to people. And my emails that I started this year, I started out being a bit provocative in them. So I give them information, but I try to be a little bit provocative in that. And then those that have one way or another either just opened the email or clicked on to have a look at an article that I was talking about or whatever it might be, those people I've invited to a lean coffee. Does everybody here know a lean coffee event?
No.
Okay, so lean coffee is a very specific, agile type of group discussion where the group gets together in the first 10 minutes, they decide what topics, and you go through a process. Everybody says, and puts on cards what I want to talk about, then they'll vote on the cards. The one with the most vote is the topic that gets first on the agenda, and you talk about it for 5 minutes. And at the end of 5 minutes, you can elect to carry on or not. And if not, you move on to the next highest on the list. If they do elect to carry on, you do that for another 3 minutes. So you cover a lot of topics. It's high energy, and you cover a lot of topics in a fairly short period of time. And the nice thing about it is you don't want too many people there. So you can bring in the scarcity. You don't want more than 10 people in the room. So you can bring in the scarcity, and that's what I've just done today. I've just sent out an email today. My lean coffee, I'm doing a lean coffee next Thursday on how to create a future fit organization. There are no speakers, there's no expert. Everybody is going to contribute their thoughts, their ideas into these little micro conversations. And I find that actually is working quite nicely. Just thought I'd add
so
that.
You're actually picking up clients from those events?
I'm hoping to pick up clients from those events. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mm.
The thing about small intimate events is that corporate decision makers love being with their peers because it's a very lonely life at the top. So if you create something like that, it works really well for them. It needs to be something of value. Getting the topic right is critical. You're going to do on the back end in terms of follow-up is really critical too. I'd love to know how it goes, Gail. Yeah, okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions?
I have, but I don't quite know what it is.
You're very welcome just to talk about your experience, actually. I'd love to hear everybody's experience approaching corporates when it's worked, when it's not worked, because I think that's really revealing as well. And Nikki might have some insight as to why it didn't work or why it did. Other people might get some inspiration from that. So
okay, I mean, I just want to give an example of what's happened this small intimate event we've been trying to organise, Nikki. So I'm a member of something called the Institute for Collaborative Working. It's a sort of is a global body, but it's based in London, and it promotes best practice around collaborative working and ISO standards and all the rest of it. Its chairman is a guy called Lord Evans. So so we actually wrote to 6 sort of heads of strategic procurement on sort of House of Lords headed paper saying, we'd like to invite you to an event to talk about, and the event was, how can local authorities who commission services better engage with their local small and medium enterprise business community? Yeah, the supply chain, keeping the local pound in the local economy, all that sort of stuff. So it's very, very topical. And yeah, we've actually decided to scrap the event, and we're going to try and rearrange it. You know, we chased and chased and chased and chased and chased, and it got tedious. And I thought, because I used to work in local government, so I thought, my gosh, if I receive something come in my inbox, invitation from Lord Evans, yeah, and it's all on the official header page, we'd like to invite you to a small select conversation here in London, with your peers to discuss this and explore, is our work, does it add value to local councils? I thought they would really jump on this, and they haven't. So actually what I've had to do is we cancelled it. We're going to try and rearrange it maybe for after Easter, but I'm going to try and get hold of every single one we invited on the phone and have a one-to-one conversation beforehand to see whether what we were offering was what they wanted, as you rightly say. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it feels like a lot of energy and effort's gone into something that hasn't gone very far.
Yeah, and I suspect it's because the topic, you could have a discussion about that at any time. So it's not compelling, there's not a sense of, we've got to get this sorted in the next 90 days. And so if I'm a corporate decision maker and I'm faced with a really busy diary and I'm making decisions about where I spend my time, it's not going to be on that. It's going to be on what's going to move the needle in the next 90 days. What have I got to deal with and get done in the next 90 days? And that's really, how we talk about when we're marketing, there has to be a sense of urgency. There's no sense of urgency around that topic.
Yeah, I've got it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas if your audience, say your audience is procurement directors, okay, and say they're coming up on year end and they've got to do a big review of all their suppliers, then if you talked about, okay, supplier review, let's get it done. What are the major issues for you that you need to resolve in the next 30 days? They would be at that discussion.
Yeah.
Do you see the difference?
Yeah, I suppose, because in this case, the Institute of Collaborative Work has done quite a lot of thought pieces, and it's regularly churning out stuff. And I thought it was a great way of trying to connect them with local authorities, because it was all this business about how big organizations can engage with their local SME community. And I thought that would be, personally thought it would be quite topical, because I've heard people talk about, the local pound. Actually, the more you procure locally, the money gets reinvested in the local economy, rather than, you buy a service from companies based 50 miles away and all that sort of stuff, But it maybe is how we pitched it. It could be the topic's still relevant, but it's the way it was framed. Yeah,
and it's, what's the sense of urgency? Why now? You need to be able to answer that question, why we need to look at this right now, and have that in your title. So you're creating a sense of urgency as to why I need to prioritize this discussion rather than something else that I might have in my diary. And sometimes when we've got big names inviting to a discussion, people might say yes if it was a webinar and not a discussion, but a discussion is different. You're expecting me to contribute. And if Lord Evans or whoever is going to be at that event, it might actually put them off. Whereas if it was a webinar and somebody was actually speaking to them, rather than it being more of an interactive discussion, they might be more willing to go to it. So I think you've got two things going on there that are working against you. If that makes sense.
It does, Nikki. Thank you. I'm conscious I'm hogging the screen, so I'll let somebody else
You're
answer.
raising really good points for everybody, so I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I think it's been also the experience, isn't it? Like I travel down to it, so it maybe takes me half an hour to get there, plus the psychological building up to it, dressing correctly and making the time for it and all of that stuff. So, and then when you get there, I remember going to a networking event years ago and I was like, right, I'm going to network, I'm going to drum up all the business. And then in the corner, a speaker came on stage and I went, oh yeah, I'd just rather do that. And I just sat down and listened to the speaker. And it turned out she was someone I knew and she ended up employing me and actually ended up giving me her business. So it was actually like a really fortuitous moment that I went and sat in the audience, but it was a wanting to hide. And I think when it comes to a discussion, you almost want somebody to take the lead of giving content first that sparks all the discussion from there on. Otherwise it's like, oh, how is this gonna, where's the frame of this, like where do I fit within the frame? And it can cause like not anxiety in its main, but it can churn up those like, oh, I don't know about that, it's too much effort, like what Nikki was saying. So sometimes it's a little bit in the structure as well.
Yeah, just one more observation, if I may. So I've been working for myself for just coming to 10 years now, and what I found, the journey has been remarkable, but it's gone through phases. So my corporate clients, as I said, are predominantly local councils. Once I get in the door, you know, people say, wow, you know, this guy knows what he's talking about. But I've also come across quite a bit of he's a one-man band. He's a solopreneur. He's not part of a big consultancy company. Yeah, and it's that, and I know Naomi and I have spoken about this quite a bit, about, you know, how you badge yourself as an expert in the confidence that, well, that you do it without over-egging it and over-bragging it, if you get what I mean, if that makes sense. And I sometimes are just interested in your opinions about the balance between shouting that you're an expert, and I know you've got the track record and the history and all the rest of it, but how you promote it in a way that attracts attention without, whereas, you know.
Could I just say something to that?
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, Henry, you've just talked about getting large companies to work with small companies, and then you've just said your biggest problem is I'm only a small company.
Yeah,
it is. It is. This is what I'm trying to say. So no. I mean, but it's true. You know, so, you know, people talk about, you know, I've heard loads of local authorities say, yeah, we must engage better with our local supply chains and, you know, utilize, you know, the local talent in our area. But their processes and procurement processes, and I'm sure many of us have been through them, are bureaucratic and, you know, huge turnoff.
But when you go to a local authority and get your foot in the door, you know that that's a difficult step to make, because you've got the same arguments when you go to big corporates, that they won't want to work with a small person because they think, well, what if that person gets hit by a bus? What if that person goes under? What if they want to work with big companies? But you're managing to get yourself in. How do you get yourself in to the businesses?
Well, but again, it's just constantly networking and talking to people and all the rest. And so my background is I spent a number of years in local government, and prior to that I was in the army for a number of years. But so I speak local government. So that, you know, picking up what Nikki says, you know, is your industry that you know. So that's
you do.
Yeah.
And Henry,
sorry,
you know,
I'm conscious I'm hogging this. There's
no, and I think it's useful, you know, because there'll be common themes within the group. So just on this point, early on in my business, there were two experiences that I had. One where I lost a really big piece of work because I only put myself in, my profile, into the proposal. And that was a mistake that I made, and I learned from very quickly, because the next piece of work that I bid for, I knew I'd have to bring in a team, and that was £286,000 worth of business for a program that we had to deliver in over 4 months. So there's something about having people on your bench before you need them, and I don't have other people on my website, but when and very few people look at websites, by the way, it's LinkedIn. But when I'm putting in a proposal, I'm always making sure that I have more than me, because there's comfort for the organization to know that if I'm off sick, or, you know, if there's a bit of a personality clash, there are other people in my team that can step in, or we work together. So it's a non-issue for me. It really is a non-issue if you take that approach and you talk about the people that kind of work with you. And you're not doing it in a way that is telling a lie. You know, I have an associate model, so I have associates that work with me in my business. And I'm sure, Henry, you've brought in other people to work with you on different programs. Yeah, so you just talk about, you know, it's myself, I have a team of associates that work with me. It's a non-issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. What I'd love is for you to continue this discussion and appoint a group leader for the end to feed back to us what you discussed, because I know there's an array of people that really want to go in front of corporates and those that don't. Those who don't, I don't think are actually on this call, because it's exactly what Nikki says. It's prioritizing what do I really want to do. So some of you just, I know, just love being here, but I think most of you actually do want to go in front of corporate. So I think it's going to be a really good opportunity for you to feedback and express in a smaller group what you wouldn't necessarily declare to a bigger group, and explore where you want to go with it. And then if there's any extra questions for Nikki, we can have time at the end of that as well. So if everybody's happy with that, I will put you into a breakout room now. I will recreate them, so hopefully they're different groups. And there we go. Cool. I'll see you in 10 minutes. Hello. Great.
Hello.
Was that helpful, having a smaller discussion and looking at things for yourself? So what I'd like to do is hear from each group something that came up. So have a think which, well, I don't know if you pointed somebody, but have a think if there's anything you want to bring up. We have another sort of, I would say 5 minutes. But one thing I just wanted to ask Nikki was something that came up in our group that struck me, is that sometimes when people don't show up for something, they sign up for an event but they don't come, or they just don't respond to a letter, like what was Henry was saying, we can often make assumptions about why. Like they didn't want it, they couldn't be bothered, they didn't have the time, they prioritized something else over, and I feel very much to say it's time to get over the assumptions and actually survey people. And also, I wondered what your opinion was on, if you can't get somebody to buy into a vision enough to fill in a 3-minute survey, you can't get someone to buy into attending an event. So what's your opinion? Do you ever do surveys, or do you think that surveys is a good idea to go out and say, what do you actually want, and test out some needs and benefits, titles and things with them?
Actually, so this kind of links into something that Karen was saying before we all got chopped off. So let me kind of do both at the same time if I can. So when you're starting out in business or you're pivoting and you're looking to work in a different area in terms of your business, it's great to do an insights interviews with people. And very often you've got the right people in your network, or they've got the right people within their network. So it's really having conversations to find 10 people that you can ask some questions of and find out what are the biggest challenges right now. Where's the need? You really want to establish a need. And that you're not tying people up for large amounts of time. Karen, in your situation, it's probably 30 to 45 minutes of questioning, and you only need to ask 10 women, okay? And you want to look at making sure that the size of the organization is the same, or maybe even the same industry or similar industries, because that's going to have more weight and you'll be able to look at trends. What's in it for them is that you're going to turn that into an insights paper, and you are going to give them a debrief on what came up and emerging best practices. So when we're asking for something from people, we want to make it clear what they're going to get back in return. You know, what's in it for me? You know, if you can answer that question of what's in it for me, then you've got it sussed. Yeah.
The other great thing about that one as well is that when you do that right, and it's a strategy that I teach inside of the bootcamp, is that when you do it right and you ask them if we were designing a solution for this, what would it look like? And they start telling you what your package should be. And then you ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely would you be to buy that? And they say, well, yeah, if you did it like everything they just said, 7, then you know they haven't said everything, because you need to get them to a 10. So it's like, yeah. So what would need to happen to make that a 10? And they actually start telling you what the package is. And then at the end of that, they almost feel wrong if you don't say, well, do you want me to just do that for you then? So those 10 appointments can actually turn into your 10 clients, because they've literally told you how they want it solved.
And I would put a caveat on that, because I think that works really well with small businesses, but it doesn't work so well in terms of the larger organizations. Because very often the solutions that people come up with, they've been implementing for years in these organizations and not getting anywhere. And so they're really looking for you to have that expertise. You know, if there's one thing that you want to convey to larger organizations, it's that you've got specialist expertise, specialist knowledge. Okay. Because the other thing is you want to become a leading authority, and the way to become a leading authority is to stand out and be different from what the crowd is saying about how to address a particular challenge. So right now, I'm in the leadership development space. Right now, organizations that we're working with and other organizations around the world keep talking about employee engagement scores. They're worried about their employee engagement scores because they went up in 2020 because people were given a lot of attention, quite rightly so that they could get everything sorted and working from home. Then 2021, they started to drop back down. On top of that, you got the Great Resignation. Okay, so there's lots of people leaving organizations, and these organizations are scared they're going to lose their top talent. Everybody is saying focus on your employment engagement scores. You know, let's have empathic and compassionate leaders. That's what's going to change this. Well, the thing with that is, if you have too much empathy and compassion going on in organizations, they don't thrive because there's little innovation and growth going on. So you want to, and that's what I'm kind of saying, okay? And it's not going to be that everybody wants to hear that. Very few people in the corporate organizations are going to be saying that out loud. They're probably thinking it. And so with larger organizations, you've got to have an edge to what it is. What's your take? So for me, what's my take on leadership? What's needed right now that nobody is saying or dares to say? If you can find that, that is compelling.
So what needs to be said that nobody is saying?
Yeah, it's like the elephant in the room, you know?
Yeah.
Can I just quickly jump across that? That's really interesting, Nikki, because, you know, as I said, I work in this partnership game, you know, city centre regeneration programs, all the rest of it. And everyone say, oh, we've got to be nice to each other and all the rest of it. When you talk to them offline, it's all about we need structure, we need organisation, we need discipline, and we need agility. But they won't say we need discipline, but they want discipline.
Yeah.
And you've got me thinking about this, actually. And of course, I'm an ex-squaddy.
So why don't you say it?
Yeah, because I have said it, but, you know, I probably haven't shouted it enough, you know, but it's got.
Yeah. And it's so important. It's the elephant in the room. Everybody knows it, but they're scared to say it. And the beauty of us being external, you know, external coaches and consultants is we can say those things, and we should be saying those things, you know? So our solutions are talking to what's needed rather than what's expected.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, cool. So I am going to move us forward. But this event will be, well, if you enjoyed this event, please do send in some feedback. Let us know. It's great for us to have some testimonials and things to put on the website. In fact, the website really does need an update of testimonials. So if you could write how much you love it, it'd be great. Just a few things, actually. I'm just going to put this slide up, but if you haven't had a LinkedIn profile and strategy session with me, please do book one. It's a 30-minute Zoom conversation. No obligation. Very happy to talk to you about your profile, how to position yourself, and what to say about yourself in there. And